good afternoon to all the colleagues that are joining us in this webinar. So as Greg just mentioned, so this is developed under the STEAME project, and this webinar is focused on the facilitation of feedback in the STEAM and PBL activities, feedback between the students and the teachers along the process. We will follow a few sections, let's say, or topics that I would like to address. First of all, very briefly, what is the purpose of this webinar? Then we will discuss a little bit about the context and the elements that go around this feedback and reflection in classes. Then we focus more on the barriers and solutions for the barriers that are common in such settings. And then we go a little bit more practical and talk about the techniques and the digital tools that you can use to plan feedback and reflection for your classes. So starting from what is the purpose of this webinar? So the purpose is to introduce tools, techniques, and the ways of organizing your classes and the ways of operating in your classes, techniques that can support self and group feedback and reflection with your students. We expect that this webinar will give you some inputs on the role of feedback and reflection in education, on how to organize individual and group reflection sessions, how to integrate continuous feedback in the teaching, mainly in PBL and the STEAM activities, and how explore the techniques and the tools that are already available to improve the student learning achievements. This is always our main concern. Going a little bit into the concept or the area of feedback and reflection, it's important to know, why are we discussing this? Why do we care about student feedback? Why is it important to have the student feedback in these learning activities? There are several reasons for this. I'm sure that you are aware of all of them or most of them. So this is a way for enhancing the students' learning, when the students have to give feedback on what they have, when the students listen to the feedback from the teachers and start in being involved in these reflection processes, they improve their self-awareness and they strengthen their skills to solve problems, to understand the vision of all the group of different people with different backgrounds. And this is quite important for the development of the student learning achievements and also for the development of their own personal competencies and skills. Through feedback, peer feedback, students to students, or different levels with students to teachers, teachers with the students. This is a way of improving communication and on creating a healthy and a good environment in the class. It's also through these feedback mechanisms, mainly when we involve different disciplines, that we promote creativity and innovation. If we are discussing among colleagues that are from the same field, we are discussing and seeing the same in the same way. When you start listening to the feedback from colleagues, from students, from teachers that come from different fields with different points of view of the same problem, then that's when creativity has a good ground to grow and to be developed. Another important aspect is that this feedback encourages and promotes the ownership of the students in the process and in the product they are developing. It strengthens the student-teacher connections, and together with this, all the environment in the class gets more relaxed, gets more easy to learn and easy to teach from these two papers in the teaching and learning process. When the students are doing their feedback and when the students are used to provide feedback on what they are doing, when they are used to discuss openly the challenges they are facing and how they are seeing the problem without fears and discussing their way of seeing things, even when it is completely contradictory to the other colleagues. This is a way of promoting students' employability capacities. This is a way for putting students more aligned with an open labor environment where naturally these different points of view appear and people have to feel comfortable in discussing them. And promoting this student feedback in the classes is a way of developing also and promoting these skills. Another thing that makes this feedback also important is to make sure that the students are focused. The students are in a process of develop something in a STEAME class, in a PBL class. Their final goal is to develop a product, but it's also important that all the process is part of the learning of their learning trip, of their learning journey. So it's very good that they are focused on the product, but they take all the opportunities during the process to learn and to develop their skills, their competencies, and improve their learning achievements. So this feedback, this continuous feedback, is a way of making this more easy for the students and a way to make these direct connections between the process and the journey and the final aim, the product that we have. So if we can somehow wrap up what we have been discussing so far, why is student feedback important in STEAM and PBL projects? I would say that this is important for these three, let's say, large level aspects. It's critical for student growth and for a deeper learning process because they are discussing with peers and with teachers how they see things, and sometimes this is very much cleared with this feedback. It is central to PBL and STEAM projects for continuous improvement and also to bring the students developing the product, but also engaged and learning during all the process and also seeing this as an opportunity, not exclusively the final product. And it's also from the point of view of students' employability, a way of building the skills that are very important in the labor market, like collaboration, communicating openly, and being clear in explaining what the students have, and developing also their critical skills. Now that we know that is important, is also kind of relevant to discuss this, to be aware of what's the benefit of feedback for the teachers and for the students. What's in it for me? Why should I bother? Why should I make this something important and something very systematically included in my class plans? The benefits for the students, we can find also a few. We've summarized this into these 5 benefits, which we found as critical for the teachers and 5 for the students. So for the teachers, I could say that this is a very straightforward way for the teachers to get a better understanding of the students' needs. So what are the students' what problems are the students facing, what doubts or what is not as clear as it should be. For the teachers, it's also very important that this is a very sound way to improve learning achievements when the students are discussing during the classes. Also, that what we have already referred to, create a strong classroom culture where people feel they can expose their ideas, they can discuss their ideas, even if they are not going in the current, let's say, that they can expose them in a safe and trust environment. And this is improving the students' employability and also is somehow lowering the stress, the level of stress that usually students have for grading activities. From the point of view of the students, we can also identify several benefits. We have selected 5 that we see that as particularly relevant. This is a very effective way for the students to have more control over their learning process because they are taking a real consideration and analyzing what they effectively know and what they are not that confident about. And that's in exactly the learning class during the process they can improve this in a continuous way. And this brings the students the floor, the field, the ground to have a better performance, to perform better because of this. Also very important for the students is the development of the soft skills that are very important for employability, to promote their motivation and their engagement in the process because they feel comfortable even when they have different approaches and different ideas, or even when they do not understand something that is very clear for my classmate in next to me. It's not that clear for me, but it's okay to ask, to go to claim this. This is not very clear for me. Let's make things work fine better and explain this. And all of these develop the students as students and also as persons, because this is developing in them an open discussion mindset. So we can summarize what we have just said in these benefits for the teachers and for the students during the benefits that they get from a systematic feedback process. So we have seen that feedback and reflection is important for classes in general, but particularly for STEAME and PBL activities where the students are very much focused on the final product, and sometimes they forget the benefits and what they can gain during the journey just looking at the final destination. It's important to enjoy the journey as you enjoy the final destination. So in this case of the classes, we can say that it's very important that the students learn and get benefits from all the process and not only the final product, and feedback makes the ground for this to happen. We have seen also a few examples of how teachers can benefit from systematic feedback and also how students can benefit from this systematic feedback. So what we have been discussing here, and I believe this is more or less consensual for all of us, is that it is very good for everybody to have this mentality and this way of this type of activities well systematically included in our classes. But then I believe we are also very much aware that it's very challenging to get students' feedback. Many times we ask students for their feedback and everybody's quiet for many reasons. And this is a question. So why is this so challenging to get students' feedback if this is so beneficial for them, for the teachers, and for all the process? Try to answer this question. So what are the barriers, and propose some solutions for this. We have identified these 6 reasons why the students do not give them feedback easily. You have identified yourselves a few of them already in this exercise that we have done. We have lack of experience or confidence, fear of criticism or hurting others, feedback fatigue, misunderstanding the purpose of the feedback, lack of time and space for feedback and reflection. This is our fault as teachers, or cultural and personal differences. Let's take a brief look at each one of them. You have this is, let's say, the large version that I have then summarized in the smaller version. So here we are seeing what is the lack of experience or confidence from the students, why this is being caused, and how we can fix it. You can go through this then in a manual that we have prepared, but then I try to summarize each one of these. And when you talk about lack of experience or confidence, so this is difficult for the students because they might not know how to give meaningful feedback. They are not used to give feedback, so they don't know how to give meaningful feedback, or they feel unsure, not very sure about their opinions. And it is important that we have a safe place in the classroom where the students trust the environment and the colleagues and the teachers and feel safe there, so that they can give their opinions even when they are unsure of them, which happens many times in a learning process. You have an opinion, you are not sure about them, you are afraid of exposing it openly, but it's good that we have this possibility and we will have it in a safe environment. So the solution for this, we have more topics here, but I believe these are a good summary of this. Try to have a pool of questions prepared in advance to promote students, to engage students in feedback. You may try to do some exercises, role-playing exercises with the students to practice how they can give feedback, how they can react to it, and share good examples. You probably have many situations of good and bad examples of effective and ineffective feedback. So give this clearly to the students so that they learn also how to provide meaningful feedback. The other issue that we have discussed, and it was also identified in the Mentimeter, is the fear of criticism or the fear of hurting other colleagues. I can summarize this in these short solution hints, let's say. So students are avoiding to give their feedback because they want to prevent conflict, they want to avoid hurting the feelings of their friends, and this might be really blocking them. I believe this can be overcome, this challenge can be overcome if we tell the students why we are asking for them for the feedback. Why is feedback important? Feedback should be seen as a part of the learning process. We should give this information to the students. Students, this feedback is not to assess them. It might be in certain circumstances, but this is to make them grow, to realize what are the difficulties and solve them while you are in the classroom. Again, when the students are not very confident, it is good that they have anonymous tools where they can provide anonymous feedback. This is somehow releasing all this pressure on the feedback. There are other examples, and I'm not going through each one of them. You will have then access to this documentation. Another point, another barrier that might prevent students' feedback is the fact that the students are tired of constantly providing feedback. It's important to have continuous feedback along the process, but we should not also overload the students with feedback, mainly when the students cannot realize what is the impact and the relevance of this feedback. So try to plan in ahead before the class what are the critical moments to ask feedback for the students and make sure that this feedback is sound for the learning process, and make sure that this is part of your class plan and that the students know what is how their feedback is going to impact and how this feedback is going to change the process and what they will gain from that. Another point also is to make sure that we give students a clear understanding why the feedback is important. The feedback should be seen as a way of learning, as a fast way of learning, because you are going straight to the point where the difficulties are, to understand your difficulties, to understand the difficulties of the others, and also to give a chance to the students in this feedback process to provide explanations to a peer, to another colleague who has a difficulty that they have already gone over, and try to involve the students in this self-learning process, in this group learning process. It's important to give this clear information to them, to connect the feedback to the learning, to the learning goals, to the learning achievement of the students, and to their personal goal. Another point we tend sometimes, I would say, sometimes I see myself in this situation, we tend sometimes to ask students feedback in a rush because we have in the end of the class, but we need to get this feedback, and then in the rush in the last 2 or 3 minutes, we try to get feedback from the students. So we are pushing the students to give this feedback, and this is not probably going to work very well. We need to have time in the class that is specifically dedicated for this. And again, this should be planned in advance. The last point, if I'm not mistaken, is about the cultural and personal differences. In some cases, in some cultures or in some individuals, asking for feedback and giving feedback might not be seen as we usually see it. So it's very important that we understand that in the group that we are working with, if everybody has the same cultural understanding about feedback and this discussion and this open discussion in the class. If people are more used to provide feedback in written, verbal, visual, in any form that might be completely different from the others. So try to promote the students groups discussing together so that we can ensure that we don't put the spotlight in one single student and we reduce in this way this individual pressure. So to overcome all these barriers, we can identify several practices for effective feedback. I have summarized them in 3 big bunches, let's say. So to make effective feedback a reality, we can find ways to make feedback fun. We can find ways to make this feedback process as a co-creation, collaborative process between the teachers and the students. And also very important, make sure that you show the students and show the group that you are working with what is the impact of their feedback. What are you using the feedback for? Show them, okay, this was what we have discussed the last time. Now, this is what you have to try to fix the problems that we have faced before. So try to be very clear, showing the students why their feedback is important and how it is influencing the decisions and the course of the plan. Okay, let's go now a little bit more concrete on techniques and tools for feedback or to promote feedback from our students. Again, we have a list of them, so I'm going briefly just highlighting the ones that we have collected. Try to have, this is something that we discussed before, a pool of questions already prepared for a given class so that we can place these questions to the students in the way that facilitates their feedback. One tool that can be also very used is to ask the students to have a logbook. A tool, it might be a group tool for the group, it might be something online or just piece of paper where the students can continually taking notes of the difficulties they are having, on the discussions they have and the outcomes of that. Digital portfolios are another tool that are important for the students to get also this information a little bit more advanced, I would say, than the logbook, because you can include there several other resources than just text. Other techniques that you can use, like these 3-2-1 reflection. So the students ask the students after a certain session, after addressing a certain topic, to write 3 things they learned, 2 questions they still have, and 1 thing they found interesting or surprising. This can be something interesting for exiting the classroom. For in the end of the class, give students 5 or 10 minutes to draft this, and this is already an important way of getting the feedback in a way that is not putting too pressure on the students. There are a few I'm not going through all of them in detail. One that is, I would say, maybe probably more known is this six thinking hats. So we have the group of people, each one of them has one hat that corresponds to several aspects of the problem: facts and information for the white hat, emotions and feelings, cautions and risks, positive aspects, creativity, process control. So the students assume this role and they bring feedback with regards to this aspect. It's a nice way to promote reflection. World Cafe is also a very nice approach to have the group of people in small groups in one chair, in one table, discussing a topic and moving from these tables to discuss different aspects of the topic in turn. If we want to plan a PBL, a STEAME class, we may suggest some activities with regards to feedback that we can have in each one of the phases of a PBL class. During the launch phase, investigation, ideation, creation, in all these phases, we can plan our classes so that we focus on certain activities that are more keen to give good results for feedback. And we are also suggesting here some methods and techniques for feedback and then for reflection on top of that feedback with the students. I'll try to accelerate a little bit now because we are running a bit out of time. What are the common or a few common challenges that we have in these regards? So from all that we have said already, ensuring that you have meaningful feedback from the students, because this will guide to meaningful reflection, and this is a way to keep the students engaged and not getting bored with the process. Another challenge is resistance to peer feedback, students among themselves. Another challenge might be managing the feedback when you have a large class. And another one, of course, is the time constraints, because the time is already short to put the students involved in what they have to do in their academic tasks. But we should consider this as also one of these tasks. And we are also suggesting here a set of solutions for each one of these challenges. Things that we have already discussing: building a classroom environment where the students feel respected and that they trust in, so that they are comfortable in explaining openly their doubts and their way of thinking, even if it is completely different from their colleagues. Using digital tools to make sure that you can have feedback on a large scale without taking too much time in the class, to make sure that the shy students feel more comfortable in giving feedback. And yeah, again, for time constraints, the best way is to plan properly the class so we know exactly what is the time that is dedicated for feedback. The last but not the least, a few digital tools that you can use for feedback. I'm sure you know most of them or many of them. You can see a brief description of each one of them and the main features that the tool provides. Mentimeter is the one that we have used just a while ago. It's some of these tools are paid, some are not, some have a free version but limited. It's the case of Mentimeter, but all of them have their very interesting features. You have all this information and more in this facilitation or feedback quick guides that we have also developed, and I will briefly show you. So this is the quick guide that was the base of this PowerPoint, and here you can find an introduction of the importance of student feedback, the added value for the stakeholders, what's in it for me if I am the teacher, what's in it for me if I am a student, what are the barriers to student feedback, feedback and reflection techniques for self-reflection and group reflection, and also blended techniques where you mix both, and then digital tools to facilitate feedback and reflection, and then in particular the challenges and a proposal of general reflection prompts that are relevant for feedback and reflection in PBL and STEAME classes. And then you have a set of references that were identified. So thank you very much for paying attention to me for these last 30 minutes.